Bulelani Qolani says he's been stripped of his dignity and human rights. The 28-year-old Khayelitsha resident was dragged out of his shack while naked. 4 officers from the City of Cape Town's Land Invasion Unit have been suspended as investigations continue. Newzroom Afrika's Atim Tongana filed this report.
Bulelani Qolani says the law enforcement officers did not give him time to get dressed.
Because I am Cooper Lamont, and the guy gave Shaman and Bon and the Shaman the soul up. At the foot in the Slibas and Janiquas and the Basakuma, Lindanimna, Abandon a Sebalegi, Lister Sam Gaban, the Funupuma went to Banabam, and then Upwell, and Puma Ban Jalaban, and Puma, but the Pumas and Demangas. Is all up a butatin Bama Panga Pamil, one the Loyo, Ayan Kaba, law enforcement Panga Pagat. Alapa is panel cotton, and Zalabapas bed. Go Ayan Sala. Ayan Sala Pepetin, Timandina, Tatanans item, to Bakupel item, Tatanans item, your scan, Chong Banayo, Nail, and the Nal. Tatanans item, item, Yakazo. Yakazo, so going to Buzam, Ilunga, Laban, Abam Lipi, Batibon, Abatuniwe, city of Cape Town. Abana ndeta khona bazayithetha no communicate ndibuza mina iphi court order iphi permit yozondichithela apha lithi zawuphangela apha imanqandini njengomadoda and ndiyakhala pha ngaphakathi because anamandla bafaka paper spray.
Qolani says he has never felt so humiliated in his life. He is afraid the images of his naked body going viral on social media will affect the way his family and the public sees him.
Into eyenzeke kum izolo since ndazalwa zandayenzela le ndenzelo ngalosuka boy kwa-City of Cape Town izolo angene ndihlamba kwam isidima sam siphi ndingumuntu okhonzayo sisi abantu nxa bendijongile bazawujonga ntoni.
4 of the law enforcement officers involved in the incident have been suspended. Qolani and other affected residents attempted to get answers from the City of Cape Town. Even here, Qolani received this kind of treatment from police officers who ordered them to leave. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Atim Tongana in Cape Town.
Well, let's stay with that story. The Social Justice Coalition's Khayelitsha says he's angered by what happened to Qolani. He was there when the incident happened. Khayelitsha joins me now for a discussion. Also part of the conversation, Adi Kumar from the Development Action Group. Good evening to you both, and thank you so much for your time on News at Prime. Let me begin with you, Khayelitsha, because you were actually there when this incident happened. Perhaps from the account of an eyewitness, tell us what you saw.
When we got there, it was difficult for us because it was not the first time we had to face law enforcement officers. They were there the day before and they were fully armed, and so normally when we also go there, we are scared for our lives. But we had to try and do what is part of our jobs and to try and protect the community. It was not only dehumanizing seeing what was happening to Bulelani, but I think the conduct of the law enforcement officers left the whole community traumatized. There were children, there were women, and there were other men who were also pepper sprayed. And so those law enforcement officers victimized the whole community. They dehumanized Bulelani, they stripped him of his dignity, but they victimized and left trauma to the whole community of eThembeni.
Of course, one of the big questions that is asked is whether or not the response was fitting for the action. You know, did the sentence, did it warrant what was actually said, the crime that was said to have been committed here?
I think when we look at that, we look at the problem. I think at the wrong side. The first thing we should be questioning is why were there instructions for people to be evicted when we know that there are regulations that are saying even if you have a court order, those court orders must be stayed up until the end of the lockdown. We haven't ended the lockdown, we are on level 3. And therefore, the person that gave those instructions, those are the questions that we should be asking, should be directed to that person that gave those 4 officers instruction to go and evict. And also, there weren't only 4 officers there. It might have been those officers that were caught on video demolishing and dehumanizing and victimizing Bulelani. But there were also other homes that were demolished there, and there were more officers than only those officers. And so this is not just about those individual officers, it's about the whole conduct of the city of Cape Town that many and myself see as anti-poor and anti-black.
Adi, let me bring you into this conversation. A government that is seen as anti-poor and anti-black. And when we look at the housing issues in the city of Cape Town and how officials have previously dealt with it, it certainly does leave a lot to be desired.
Absolutely. I mean, the issue is absolutely outrageous, and it highlights exactly what you're talking about, which is the elephant in the room, that we haven't been able to address systematically the housing demand that's there, not just in Cape Town, but nationally. I mean, if you look specifically at Cape Town, and depending on who you ask, there's anywhere between 300 and 400,000 people who are still waiting for housing, either in informal settlements or based in crowded backyards or in crowded hostels or flats. And it's estimated at the moment that just to upgrade one informal settlement, it can take anywhere between 7.5 to 11 years. And very often it can take up to 15 years to upgrade one informal settlement. I mean, with the 200 informal settlements we have in Cape Town, it's probably going to take us over a century to get to that particular point where we can even make a dent in the housing crisis. Obviously, this is supplemented by the fact that all the developments that have taken place in Cape Town have mostly been on the periphery of the city. And that begs to call why land in the center of the city, in the inner city, is not being made available for social housing and affordable housing that reduces the burden on the poor to transport from the periphery to economic opportunities.
Why is there such a delay when it comes to the provision of housing? What are some of the backlogs that the city is experiencing? Adi, can you still hear me? All right, we'll try and reestablish that line with him, but Qolani still joins us on the line. Qolani, perhaps from your perspective as the Social Justice Coalition, have you been given reasons for why there is such a backlog in the housing situation in Cape Town?
We haven't, and these are questions that we've continually asked from the city of Cape Town. And in our view, one of the main reasons why the city doesn't want to invest in development of communities that are known as informal settlements is the fact that there is this view that informal settlements are just going to disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. And therefore, they are treated as temporary settlements. There's this wish that they are going to disappear, and the city of Cape Town doesn't want to invest in proper infrastructure and planning. And this is also tied to the issue of land, because many of the informal settlements within the city of Cape Town are extremely dense. The informal settlements in Khayelitsha are extremely dense. Therefore, for you to be able to develop, not only just provide houses, even if you are to upgrade an informal settlement, you have to remove quite a number of them. And so it's important that when you remove those people, you don't take them further away from the city center or from job opportunities. Hence, the struggle for land within the inner city is also important. These are also struggles that are combined. If the city doesn't put much more effort, then this backlog is going to continue to grow.
What happens now? What is the way forward? I know organizations such as the Legal Resources Council have come on board to help fight some of the cases in court. But while those processes are underway, do you feel that there are good alternatives that have been put on the table for many of these people who, of course, have nowhere else to go?
I think what is important now is to look at this issue, look at the history of these evictions within the city of Cape Town, look at the many systemic issues that are involved, and to not only pick these individual cases. I mean, there's been many evictions. Some of them have been covered by the media, some of them haven't been covered by the media. The victimization continues to happen in each and every one of these evictions. And we need to ask questions about who authorizes these evictions, how are they authorized, what are the documents that the city uses, because we've asked for some of that information from the city, especially Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security, JP Smith, and his Executive Director, Richard Bosman. We haven't received answers. We need those answers, and we need to look into this issue in a much broader sense than just these individual issues. It's linked to housing, it's linked to the issue of land, it's linked to how the city sees poor black people within the city of Cape Town.
All right, Social Justice Coalition's Khayelitsha Notjoala, and I believe that, Adi, we have you back on the line. One of the things that Khayelitsha has been raising is the lack of accountability that has been shown by the city of Cape Town in being able to fully explain to people why it is that housing is such a big problem.
Absolutely. I don't think there has been any clear answers on many of the commitments that have been made in the city around specific projects, whether it be inner city social housing or whether it be housing such as BNG developments in various neighborhoods. And the problem is there hasn't been any transparency around many of these issues, which is why citizen frustration is at such a high level. People don't know what monies, what the budgets are being, what items are being prioritized in the budget, what issues are being prioritized by the city, and it's unclear what actions are being taken to comprehensively deal with the issue of informal settlements and people living in backyards. And I think that's the real answer we need to be asking the city, and getting clarity on what the processes are to take this matter forward.
Some of these individuals, we understand, had actually been renting rooms in backyards, and as a result of COVID-19 have lost work, are now unable to pay rent, and therefore they go and set up these structures. What does the city of Cape Town have to do in this instance to show that it actually cares about these people?
I mean, each of these evictions are illegal evictions. They are being conducted without any kind of court order, and there is no protection mechanism put in place either through the city or through the province or through national government that protects tenants at the moment if they get evicted by landlords for not paying the rent. And this is a condition that we understand is prevailing in the city, all over the city, where people are being pushed out, people are being thrown out because they're unable to pay the rent. And this is really the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic, that people are going to lose their employment and as a consequence are likely to become homeless. But regardless of what happens in these particular instances, the legislation as well as the constitution is very clear in how it protects its citizens in terms of its evictions and what the responsibility is of the state to protect the citizens and provide alternative accommodation for them.
All right, Adi Kumalemi, thank you for your time. He is the Development Action Group Executive Director, and Khayelitsha Notjoala is the General Secretary of the Social Justice